During our cold morning run this morning, and my mouth is still frozen from how cold it's been outside, Jami and I asked ourselves the question, is all this that we've done really worth it? Is it really making a difference? We spent the rest of the time talking about that question, which is what we're going to talk about with you right now. So let's start streaking. What is streaking and why should you do it?
Streaking is how you set up personal winning streaks. Look at who you want to be and what you need to do to become that person. This is streaking.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jami.
And we are streakers. Through 30 years of marriage and 7 children, we have learned the power of consecutive consistency or streaking.
To start streaking is simple. You just follow these 3 laws. Make it laughably simple, keep a record, and join the streaking community.
Streaking is your hidden superpower. With it, you will consistently progress and grow in whatever area of life you want.
In this podcast, Jeff and I will share all the fun, exciting, serious, solemn, wonderful parts of family, spiritual, professional, and personal life, and how streaking powers it all.
So join us in the conversation, join the movement, and start streaking today. Oh, Jami, that was such a cold run this morning.
Yes, it was.
Oh my goodness, what was it, 25 degrees?
Not our coldest run, though. But yes, it was cold.
Not our coldest?
No, we've had colder runs.
Have we really?
Yes. Do you want to know how I know?
How do you know?
The coldest runs are the ones where when your nose starts to drip and you sniff and it freezes together. That's how I measure true cold runs.
So we've been doing this now for at least the running part of it for 7 years, 7.5 years.
Yep.
And we've run or walk at least 1 mile every single day in every type of weather imaginable.
Yep.
I mean, and I say every single day, but to be completely and fully transparent, accurate, it's been Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then we don't run on Sunday, and then we start up again. But we've done that now for 7.5 years, consistently, consecutively.
Never missing a day.
And the question that I asked you this morning on the run when we could barely talk, because does your chin freeze when you're out in that cold water?
And my cheeks.
You were saying how you had to moisturize your face because
I had to moisturize my nose because it had exposure.
Because every other part of your body was completely covered and protected from the elements.
Yeah, it was. Because what do they say? It's not a weather problem. It's a clothing issue.
That's right. It's not a weather problem. It's an equipment problem.
Yep.
That's
if you have the right equipment, you can do it.
You can do it, which is what we were doing today. The question that we asked was, has this really made a difference? Has what we've been doing for 7 years made a difference? Because, and why did I ask the question?
Because we both have some pounds that we want to lose. That's why. And
we should just have the body that we want, shouldn't we? Because we've been doing it for so long.
That was my question this morning is I'm like, if we've been doing this for 7 years and we're consistent in our running, why do I still have to think about losing some weight?
Yeah.
Why do I not feel like my body is where I want it to be?
Right. Or where I picture it in my mind it should be.
Yes.
And the other question we asked was a little bit later on in the conversation was, if we didn't have streaking as something that we were trying to share with everyone else, would it have the same impact in our lives, or would we have incorporated
the same
it as
level
much
of
in our
focus?
Life? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think those two we're going to involve you in the conversation, streakers, of as we talked about these things, how they intertwine, because many of our runs or walks are about what's happening in our life, the intentionality of it, and what it is that streaking has played a part in and why.
So we asked that question. Is this making a difference?
And we tried to come up with evidence.
Yes. And we came up with some.
Yeah, I agree.
So the answer, should we give the answer now or do we wait till the end?
I think we wait.
We wait.
Yeah. So because we got to go through the conversation with them. So when I asked, what were your thoughts, immediately, I guess I gave you an evidence right away that was, I wouldn't be out here doing this in the cold, or what was, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was that I said.
Well, we were talking, I don't remember what you said. I only remember what I said.
Okay, well,
maybe
what
I
say?
said will trigger a memory of what you said. As we were talking about, because I was thinking about it, because did you ask the question or did I ask the question? Or were we just both thinking about it?
I asked you the question of, has this really made a difference. I mean, knowing that we don't have the bodies that we have, we put on the poundage that we have, we're trying to work that off.
It's not a ton, but it's enough to be frustrated where it's like we have to focus.
I remember what I answered. Okay, I'm ready when you are.
So my thought, as I thought about it, because I was thinking, I'm like, well, I am being consistent, but I do have to do something else for my body to be where I want it to be. And I was thinking, so should I keep running? Is this helping? And the couple of things that I thought is, one, emotionally, it's helped me tremendously. Being able to emotionally, and also the feelings of guilt or being overwhelmed, those have subsided a ton because of my running. And I'll explain a couple ways. One, because I'm doing it, I can feel good about myself. It doesn't have to be, I don't have to have the perfect body I want, which maybe I'll never have. Maybe that's not a body issue. Maybe that's a Jamie issue. Well, maybe it's what would I call it? I don't even know what I'd call it. It's a framing issue. It's a perspective issue. Yeah. Maybe it's not.
Right.
Because what is the body that we really all truly want is to be healthy when it comes down to it. We may want perfect physiques, but the real matter of what we want when it comes down to it is we want to be healthy. And we notice that especially when we're not healthy.
And when you look at perfect physique, isn't perfect physique in the eye of the beholder?
Exactly.
Or in the way you feel about yourself?
Right. So what I want truly is to be healthy. And I know that there's a certain place. So what I'm really feeling is that running helps emotionally because I feel better. I know I'm exercising my body. I know I have this idea in my head when I run. I think about it a lot in the wintertime, that when I go out in the cold air specifically, that there's something about cycling oxygen, like cold oxygen through my whole body that helps eliminate germs. I have no idea if there's any scientific background for that.
Right.
But I think about it when I go out on cold runs. Yeah. I'm like, I got to run long enough to cycle cold air through my whole body so that it kills all the germs and I can be healthy. I look
at stagnant water as a swamp, and there's a lot of bacteria, bugs, and ugly stuff that are in a swamp. Whereas running clear lake water, I look at that like in the high mountains.
There is something about running water that is more pure than stagnant water. Right. So emotionally, being able to know that I am going out and being consistent has had huge ramifications that I can see how I feel about myself, as well as thinking about where I would be if I wasn't doing anything.
True.
So that was my first thought, that yes, it is making a difference.
So like we mentioned, I've gained some pounds that I haven't wanted to gain. And I guess I have wanted to gain it because I haven't paid much attention to it. However, my thought was, as far as one of the evidences, so one of your evidences was emotionally you feel more stable.
Yes.
The evidence that I had is in the past when before streaking and before I would do exercising and I wouldn't pay attention to what it was that I was eating, I would eat without thought and really kind of exercise in spurts. It would be up and down. I would balloon up in weight. I mean, I'd go from 215 pounds, which, just so you know, I'm 6'5", and I've always had a big frame. So I'd go from 215 pounds all the way to 230, 235. I mean, very early in our married life, I was 260, 265, something like that. Do you remember those days? Yeah. And I thought to myself, so in the last year and a half, 2 years, current year and a half, 2 years, I have not really paid attention to what I've been eating or what
I want to rephrase that a little bit, because you actually have a streak where you keep track of all your calories.
No, I have done that.
So you pay attention to it, but you haven't altered it. It hasn't, you're not putting yourself on a specific regimen. What I did for that is
I was just like, I want data points.
Yeah.
And so I just started counting calories. So I've counted every single calorie I've ingested over the last, I don't know how long that streak is, 4 or 5 years. However, I haven't been intentional about what I've been putting in. I've just been intentional about recording it.
Right.
What I recognized this morning as another evidence is that when I weighed in, so I weighed myself for the first time yesterday in, I think, a year and a half, 2 years is the first time I've weighed myself for about 2 years. And when I've gone that long and have not paid attention to what it was that I was eating, or not caring, because I paid attention, but not caring about what I was putting in, I've ballooned up. Well, this time when I weighed in yesterday, I thought, yep, I'm way over. I was 218 pounds, 218.6. And that was another evidence to me that the streak of run or walk at least run or walk at least 1 mile every day but Sunday has really helped me to stay at least within a certain parameter of weight. And had I not been doing that, I would have ballooned up to where I was. And I think the two things together, like you said, even though I wasn't being intentional about what I was putting into my body, I was being intentional about recording that I'd had that. So now when I do want to get really focused and intentional, it's not like I am starting from scratch.
Which is starting from scratch in two ways. It's starting from scratch physically, but also emotionally and mentally. The amount of energy it takes to start something when you haven't been doing it at all is significant and takes a lot. Which is part of the reason.
Which is the third evidence that you brought about.
Well, just real quick, I wanted to say, which is why I believe so strongly in streaking, because to get started, you do something laughably simple. Like getting started and being consistent is the point of what you're doing. It's not some destination. It's not a weight goal. It's not a physical. It's I want to get started and I want to be consistent.
Uh-huh.
And so what were you going to say is the second?
Well, which is the third evidence that you brought up, which was the flywheel effect.
Yeah.
And that refers to what it was that you were saying.
Yeah, the getting started of it. So I wanted to talk to you about something, and this kind of relates to what we were talking about, getting started. But it's something that I think you experience.
When you start with it might be, I always hear it might be a 10.
Might be a 10, Jeff. This is a tough one. Streakers, this might be a 10. This is kind of it's a little bit of an advanced concept because we've been streaking for a lot of years.
Oh, yeah. By the way, so when we say it's a 10, that means that on the scale of difficulty to hear or difficulty to deliver to one another, it's 10 is the absolute hardest you can possibly get.
It's a way to temper the conversation. It's a way to prepare the person you're talking to say, what I have to say may be difficult for you to hear or difficult for me to say. Should I proceed?
Should I proceed?
Is this a good time?
Is this a good time? We don't have to, but
just so you know. Okay. So one of the things I've been thinking about as I have been consistently streaking now. So I have several streaks that are into the years, several years long. And I've been thinking about, and I'll see if I can explain this well, is that when I have something that I haven't been doing, but I've been feeling guilty about or feel like I should be doing, and I haven't been doing it, I haven't been doing about it. And every time I think about it, there's that feeling of like, I got to do it. When I finally get around to spending some time on it, and usually what happens when I'm before streaking is that I would think about it, and not do anything on it until finally something happened that the thinking about it was becoming so overwhelming, or I finally cleared away some time that I could spend an hour or two or something that was a significant amount of time. And I was like, all right, I did it.
Right.
When I would do that, when I would finally get to it and spend that 2 hours on that thing that I felt like I'd been needing to do.
Right.
The dopamine rush that I got for spending that 2 hours was significant. I was like, that was awesome. I feel so good. I finally did it. Like that feeling of accomplishment for this thing that I'd been feeling guilty about and not doing, and I finally did it. But often, and I was never able to keep up a level of consistency, though. I may go back to it for a little bit, but eventually it always tapered off back to the doing nothing. And so it was this cyclical cycle. I've been noticing that as I do my streaks now, I don't have that cyclical do nothing. I'm always doing something on it. And I still have times that sometimes I do a lot more, but I don't have as many of those times where I spend like that. I carved out that time and I spent 2 or 3 hours doing it because I don't feel the need to carve out that time. I'm doing it consistently, so I'm continually doing it. The thing that I noticed, and this is where I'm a little hesitant to say it, but it was interesting to me to recognize that as I was doing these small things, I wasn't getting, at first, when I was doing them consistently, I would get that dopamine rush. But as I've been doing them for years now, I don't get that same dopamine rush every time I do it. In fact, one day I sat back and was like, the question that we just asked today, is this even making a difference? I don't get that same massive rush of feeling like, oh my gosh, I finally did it. But I have two streaks, I'll have to think, that I have data to show that I have done so much more by being consistent than I ever accomplished by porpoising, by just doing, having times of no activity and then a few times of just this massive solid activity. So I know that what I'm actually doing in being consistent is producing more results. However, the consistency doesn't always give me that same dopamine rush.
So people get addicted to the dopamine rush.
I think so. There's something about, so it answered a question for me that I've asked a lot, which is when we talk about streaking a lot, and I've even fought it a lot in myself, that it is easier to do nothing and wait for the time when I can do something big than it is to do a little bit every day. Why does a little bit not seem to count? Why is it easier to be like, no, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, with the hope that eventually I'll get to this place that I really do it? Why is that easier? Why do so often we say that's better than just being like, you know what, I'll just do a little bit. But we do that little bit and sometimes we feel like it doesn't count.
And the reason is because you get the big dopamine rush.
You get that huge dopamine rush when you've been procrastinating or stalling or ignoring or haven't been able to get to it for whatever reason.
You feel really
and
good
then
about
you
yourself.
finally get to it. You do. You feel really good about yourself because you finally alleviated all of that guilt and all of that thinking about it.
You're not really making the case for streaking here.
No, actually, I am.
Oh, how's that?
That's why I was hesitant to bring this up, because you're right. I'm like, this is advanced streaking concept. The point is that once I recognized that, I started to understand that dopamine rush is addictive and why it's easier to say, oh, I'll just wait till I can do it big so I can feel good about myself. But the reality is I have significantly more journals filled than I ever did when I would just do it occasionally, even though I would get that dopamine rush when I would do it occasionally. But what I'm actually doing, my actual results are significantly more
than
what they
otherwise
are.
would be.
So it's an important thing to recognize. The reason I'm saying this is because as you're streaking, you will have to fight the belief that it's making a difference.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get that same dopamine rush that you get from being consistent that you get when you're not consistent and you finally get to something.
You get this the big huge spurt.
The spurt, but then it's followed by that spurt wanes, and then it's followed by what I would call depression and guilt and
misery.
Misery, because you're back to, well, I'm not doing it again.
Right.
But because that dopamine rush was high, you're like, oh, I'll get to it. But your actual results, what you're actually getting in outputs, is greater through the consistency.
Yeah.
Even though the feeling can seem like it's not.
So it's worth it.
Yes.
Which is what we asked in the very start of this. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
And would we be doing it as much as if like, for example, as we do this podcast and many other different activities, like, for example, provide the streaking app and so forth, would we be as committed to what we do in streaking? You asked the question if we're outside of it. In other words, we'd heard about it. Let's say we had listened to you and I and thought, that's a pretty interesting concept. I'll give it a shot. Would we be as equally dedicated to it as we are now?
Yes, I think I would be.
We've said it several times, I think, where I've said to you, whether or not anyone else picks this up, uses it, does it, it's made a massive difference in my life.
And why? Because it has become this place where it frames my day.
Yeah.
I'm able to frame my day. When I presented a few weeks ago, I guess it's been a month now, to a group of female lawyers. And I talked about the app becoming a journal of my successes. And by that, I meant at the end of a day, because I have a streak to check my app, to check my streaks.
Yeah.
So that's how I usually finish each day, is just running through and making sure. And I started to recognize that as I go through that each day, it is a journal of the successes I've had each day.
Right.
No matter what level they're at. Even if my journal writing was a sentence, that was a success. When it's a full page, that's a success. The success is that I've done it. And to be able to go through the Streaking app and see a journal of successes on those days that I'm
Every
feeling
single
like
day.
every single day, on those days when I look at it and I think, did I even get anything done today?
Yeah.
I can go through and say, at least I read to the kids today. At least I wrote in my journal today. And at least being, even if all I did was write one sentence, I did that today.
Right.
And I did it yesterday, and I'm going to do it tomorrow. So it becomes literally, I'm like, I am being successful.
Right.
So that takes the place of that porpoising dopamine rush that you get.
And as I look at the new version of the app, which is coming really soon, it's actually February 1st is when we'll launch the new app to the world, which is the upgraded version. I love how we see other streaks that are being completed. That gives me huge motivation and the dopamine as I see others completing their streaks on things that are typically intangible.
Yes.
You know, I'm more kind today. Well, how do you know you're more kind today? More so, I completed a kind action today. Mm-hmm. Or, for example, the idea that we were talking about a little bit earlier about feedback. And how do I know if it's making any kind of a difference at all? Well, what I do know is I'm asking for it. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking for it and I'm seeking it out. And so much of streaking, again, advanced concept to what you're saying, is so much about your mindset. I think you were talking to my brother and saying to him that it's very little about the activity that you're doing.
It's
so much more about the consecutive, consistent, simple, intentional thing that you're doing.
And I loved what you just said, where you said it's about the mindset. Really, I mean, there's a lot of books out there now talking about mindset and growth mindset. Well, a lot. I'm specifically talking about the growth, but there's more talk about it because of that book. It's changed the way that we think and we look at mindsets a lot now, the way that we think and how we think about things and how much impact that has on the actions that we take. Streaking to me is the way to change that mindset. And we've done a whole podcast on this, but I saw it again today when we were talking about my feedback streak and all of our streaks, actually. When I look at it, I think it is a process of continued growth.
Yeah.
I am continuing to learn new things about myself, about the world around me, because I am consistently streaking. So I am learning and recognizing things that I wouldn't have seen before. So when you talked about feedback, because I've had that streak for a couple years now, I'm thinking about feedback a lot. Mm-hmm. And because of that, now I've read a book about feedback. I look at how people take feedback when we have commercials coming out.
Oh, they're going to be so good.
But when we had the actress doing the commercials, I recognized how she was a better actress because of the way she was able to listen to the feedback that the director was giving her, and without being bristled or emotion or blocking that, she took that feedback and was able to change and tweak the way that she was doing things. That I literally watched a vision of what we had come to life because she would change one little thing and be able to present that in a way in her acting. And I thought that is because she has mastered and understood how to take feedback.
Yeah, she really has. Streakers, it has been a wonderful journey that we plan to continue for many, 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 many years until the end of our life because of all of the different great impacts that it's had on us. Simple, intentional, every day, every week, every month. Coming in the new year, a couple of things to look forward to. First, obviously, the upgrade of the app, which is going to be just change your life in regards to the social media aspect of. We were talking, Talon and I yesterday were talking to someone a vendor that wants to promote our podcast and so forth. And we were showing him the app just to familiarize him with our business. And he said, so this is really a positive, powerful tool for social media, whereas it's not something that is just to showcase or entertain. It's actually something that entertains, empowers, and educates. Those are my words, not his. But that's what the whole app is meant to do.
I see the app becoming a platform for personal and social change.
Yeah.
So that you can be, and the social change aspect of it, I'm really excited to see, as you can see other people completing their streaks and the number of streaks that are completed in a day and the streaks that people are doing.
Yeah.
It has such a motivating and empowering feeling to feel like, okay, look at all these good things that are happening. Look at all these people who are doing small things every day to make changes in their life. It's very empowering and motivating and encouraging.
So be on the lookout for that. And also, we've got, starting February 1, some really neat commercial messages that are going to be there. What?
February 1, yep.
Yeah, February 1. Did you? I thought you had.
I thought it was going to be January 1, but
no,
it's
February 1. February 1. And everyone said, well, why not January 1? Because everyone does everything January 1. We're going February 1. Streaking has always been about being different.
It is.
and so that's where we're at. But it's some really neat things that we're going to ask you to look at and then pass on, because they teach such great concepts in 1 minute. In 1 minute. We've got 8 of these that are already shot and ready to go. And in 1 minute, you're going to learn 8 minutes overall, but 1 minute, you're going to learn some things about streaking in a different light, fun light, entertaining light that are going to be really cool. Well, Streakers, if you want to learn more about streaking, pass it on to someone else. You can buy the book anywhere books are sold, Streaking, Streaking. You can also download the app right now today. As it stands, it has a social media component, and it's going to get even better. You can download it at the Apple App Store or at Google Play, either one of those places, and you can follow Jamie's streaks, you can follow my streaks, you can follow a whole bunch of thousands of other streaks. In fact, last month, there were 17,000 streaks that were completed.
Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that amazing? Just, I think it was just north of that, 17,000 streaks.
In 1 month.
In 1 month. It was pretty cool. Anyway, Streakers, we hope that you have a wonderful weekend, a great day, and until we talk again,
keep streaking.